Hello, everyone. Welcome. We are so excited today to have a very special guest on with us in the Lenovo Pro community, Angela O'Brien. Welcome. My name is Beth. I'm your host, and we are actually joined already by one of my superb helpers today. This is
Oh, come
Ralph.
on. Now I feel bad. I booted my three out so they wouldn't be, feeling
Oh,
good in the
no.
front.
Cats are always welcome here. So this is Ralph.
Hi, Ralph.
Welcome, Angela. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks, Beth, for having me.
Well, I am very excited to have Angela on from Esteem Lingerie and Bra Fitting Academy because Angela has an incredible wealth of experience as a small business owner in lifelong education, coaching and learning, serial entrepreneurship, as well as a business owner as a survivor of a natural disaster. So we've got so much to talk about today. We're really excited to get into it. But Angela, first, welcome. Thank you so much for being here again. I'd love to hear more about you and your business and what projects you got going on.
Well, as always, anybody who has an entrepreneurial mind or spirit, sometimes it feels like we're chasing rabbits constantly. But as you mentioned, I've been founder, co-owner of Esteem Lingerie, which is a luxury lingerie shop here in West Kelowna, British Columbia, Canada. And we've done that for about 19 years. Prior to that, I was very entrenched in the insurance industry. So my first decade in business was at the corporate level in insurance, working my way up and also finishing my career there in business coaching, consulting, training, and development. And more recently, in the last few years, I decided to go back to those business coaching, consulting, training roots because I'm fortunate after 19 years, the lingerie shop is humming along nicely. And we've now developed the Esteem Bra Fitting Academy, which is a training space in the online world designed for small to medium-sized businesses to help them train their staff, as well as start incorporating those good old-fashioned things that they're not teaching in school anymore, like customer service and salesmanship and that kind of thing. So we have started out being a little more targeted on the lingerie industry. However, I basically coach, consult everything from all small businesses to, boards and different business community advocacy groups, that kind of thing. So
I
that's
love that.
in a nutshell.
And it's pretty amazing too that to this conversation, you're not only bringing your decades of experience as a small business owner, but then all of the incredible work that you've done coaching and helping other entrepreneurial spirits and small business owners to create businesses where they can thrive, not just survive. So that's also really cool.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, one of the cool things that we talked about in your journey and with your business was back in 2023. Can you tell us a little bit about what that was and how that spurred quite an interesting catalyst in your business?
Well, 2023. So, first of all, to give you a little background where I live geographically, the Okanagan Valley in British Columbia is this basically, I think it's one of the best places in the world. So, if you ever want to visit, come see us. But we are, in between mountain ranges. We're surrounded by forests. Most of the communities in our valley surround a beautiful, long, like the lake is, I think, over 120 kilometers long. It is a mecca for if you love being out in nature. And with that comes some challenges, especially now when we're talking about climate change events. The big one for us typically is forest fires. And like I say, this forest fires are not my first rodeo. I've lived in this province for most of my life, and so we are rather accustomed to dealing with these. But what is happening now, of course, is greater frequency, especially with droughts and stuff. Anybody who's in the western part of the United States understands what we go through up here as well. And basically, we had in August, it was the 15th of August, and we'd been notified that a small forest fire had started near our community. Now, because there's usually so many forest fires going on in our province during this time of the summer, it was just kind of considered a blip, and they didn't think much would come of it, even though it was less than 10 kilometers from the city. They were watching it, but not necessarily actioning it. And unfortunately, the weather shifted. We ended up with high velocity winds, and this little small spot of a forest fire within 24 hours surrounded our city and was taking it
Wow.
out. And it
Wow.
was moving so quickly, so quickly. Um, the day it started to move, my daughter was actually only about 30 kilometers down the lake. She was a camp counselor at one of the local summer camps. And in the morning, they were like, no, we're fine, we're okay. By noon, they were starting to call parents to tell them to pick up the kids. By 3 o'clock, my daughter said, Mom, we're evacuating the camp. I don't think we have enough vehicles. Can you come? And
Wow.
was one of the last vehicles that made it down the highway before they closed the highway because the fire was chasing us. And we managed to get everybody safely out of the camp. But there I was, basically from about 7 o'clock that night, leading a convoy of teenage leaders to get out of the fire zone, to drive the 120 kilometers around the other end of the lake to get us
Wow.
to safety. And we got home that night and we didn't get any sleep because we could watch it coming over the hills. And we were just packed up. And by morning, my household had to be evacuated. We moved a little further into town to my mom's place. We closed the store down because we had full emergency orders. They were evacuating everybody they could out of the area. All tourists were asked to leave, which for a tourist town is a major reaction.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time we got up that after that morning, they figured they'd already lost about 120 buildings. And through the course of the 3 days, it was neighborhood by neighborhood, house by house, trying to save the town. And so for 3 days, everybody hunkered down and tried to survive it. And when people want to compare what it was like, the tragedy that happened in Hawaii the year before that, the only difference was here we didn't have the loss of life because our communication system stayed up
Wow.
through it. But it was devastating. And we closed the store for 3 days. And I was like, nope, there's no such thing as a bra emergency in a forest fire. So, my staff told them to keep in touch, stay mobile, and
Mm-hmm.
we'll reevaluate on Monday. And walked into the store on Monday, and of course, it's filled with smoke. But I thought, okay, we can deal with this. And then I
Save
start looking
everything.
around, and I realize, oh no, we forgot to shut off the air conditioning system. So while our store did not suffer fire damage, our air conditioner system pulled in all the ash and soot and basically made it snow all through my shop and covered everything in a fine layer of basically toxic soot and dust.
Wow.
So when you work with intimate garments like I do, and we also specialize in post-surgical and post-mastectomy fittings, these garments have to maintain a very high level of cleanliness.
Hmm.
And everything was destroyed.
Wow.
Everything was destroyed. So that was where we started cleaning and hoping that we could mitigate it. And we did that for 4 days. And then I realized I can't fix this on my own. I cannot save this. And
Wow.
my staff still remembers when I had that realization because literally I was sitting in the panty section and it was ugly crying and staring down my
Wow.
face and we've lost it all. It's gone 18 years. And you have that moment where you feel like the world has ended for you.
Over.
And yet I'm alive. My family's alive.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have our home. We're going to be okay, but you have to go through that moment as a human.
Wow. I mean, even just to sit with you there in the panty section, I mean, I cannot imagine, like, no matter the business, if you are faced with that kind of tremendous loss, what you've been curating, all of the inventory, everything just gone. I just and how all the years building it. I mean, it's so wow. I mean,
Yeah,
so
it stops you dead. It literally stops you dead. And the hard part is that to even for outside people to understand, it's like you're surrounded by everything and yet it's still destroyed. And that's a duality that's really hard for a lot of humans to kind of wrap
very
their brain.
complex. I mean, it's even tough to hold sometimes two very conflicting emotions at once, let
Yeah,
alone this kind of conceptual loss with your business while it all is all still there.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Okay,
And
so we're go ahead.
so of course the next step is you're sitting on the floor, you're crying your eyes out,
Yep.
and now what?
Yes.
And now what?
So
And
we're
this
at zero,
we're at
kind of.
zero, and
Yep.
now so this is where, and we've put together as part of the academy a master class, basically outlining this experience because I think it's very helpful for other business people to hopefully. I wouldn't wish this on anybody. I wouldn't wish this
Mhm.
on my worst enemy. But the reality is, if you've been in business long enough, you're going to encounter these situations. And they're on a spectrum of, not such a big deal to, oh my gosh, this is devastating. But it happens. Where do you go from there?
Mhm.
That's always the question. And too often we forget our human part in
Mhm.
this. And one of the first things I say is, okay, you need to decide how you want to come out of this.
Mhm.
That's the only control you have in situations like that. So that's what I did. I
Mhm.
up and I decided, how am I going to come out of this?
What options did you have at that point that you were starting to, okay, what can we do?
What can we do? Well, once again, thankfully coming from the insurance industry, and I'm a
Mhm.
big believer in insurance. And so, you know, and thankfully, because I understand insurance and I understand the policies and I know how to read them, I knew I had really good insurance coverage. I also knew the process that I was going to have to go through in order to prove my loss
Mhm.
and to be able to basically take advantage of all those premiums I'd paid for 18 years
Wow.
and get us to a recovery state
Mhm.
using the insurance. And it's this is one of those other points that I always say to entrepreneurs
Mhm.
is that understanding the parts of your business. Don't go and buy insurance and just take everybody's word for it. Read your policy. If you've hired a broker to work with you, utilize that broker's skills, knowledge, and training.
Mm.
Understand what you're paying for and what you have. Also, begin, and this is an old Stephen Covey thing, begin with the end in mind.
Mm.
If you know what goes into making a claim in insurance, you're going to set up your business differently. That in the case of catastrophe, you can then utilize something that you've purchased.
Mhm. That's a
And that,
wonderful insight that you might not think about. Like, how
no,
are you gonna set up your claim? How can you make sure you equip things in your business before you even get to that point to make that so much easier?
exactly,
Mhm.
exactly. And that I think was probably one of the best things I learned in the insurance industry when I was
Mhm.
coming through, is that if you're starting with that end in mind, and no, you
Yeah.
don't want to catastrophize, that does not help anyone.
Right. Balance.
But if you have the simple knowledge of, okay, and let's just think of your own house.
Mm-hmm.
If your house was not there tomorrow because of unfortunately a catastrophe, and you have this wonderful insurance plan and you have to set up your claim of loss, the first thing you need to be able to do is itemize every single item in your house.
And who has that in their back pocket?
Exactly.
But preparing, it makes me think very, very much in that many small business owners and entrepreneurs have to wear a lot of different hats. And because that can be an exhausting process, that you can't become an expert in anything. It's almost like you have to have this balance of jack of all trades, but I have to be a master of few because of course you have your business and what's brought you to the passion and the knowledge that you have to bring forward as your business. But keeping that in mind, really trying to delve in and do the best practices in each area will prepare you so much better.
Yeah. And this goes back to, as an entrepreneur, one of the first things I always find with entrepreneurs is this whole question of capacity.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Personal capacity. And this goes back to the end of the day, we are humans working in a business function.
Mm-hmm.
We're not business automatons playing being human.
Mm-hmm.
And too often we forget that humanity thing. And as a human, you know what? You cannot perform, you cannot master individual functions. And you're absolutely right. It does feel like the jack of all trades. And especially for solopreneurs or
Mm-hmm.
small partnerships and stuff. I know some of them are listening to me right now and going, she's out of her mind. All well and good for you to say 18 years later, hey, I've been there. I've been the working 80 hours a week, feeling like all I'm doing is carrying a fire extinguisher, putting out fires.
Mm-hmm.
But what I learned, and it was a totally different event that flipped my mindset on this, was I first have to take care of the human, which means A, rest and recovery. Rest is not a dirty four-letter word.
Mm-hmm.
I need to have the capacity and the time to be able to think, formulate, and make good decisions. And
Think,
too often,
formulate, and make good decisions.
and that is a time factor. So, as I always say to most of my entrepreneurs, you got 3 factors you can work with: time, energy, and money. Those are really the only 3 things you can work with. Now,
Mm-hmm.
some you can invest the money, but you're still going to have to invest some time and energy in managing it.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you have to DIY it.
Yep.
It'll take you more time or more energy, but it'll save you money. But there's one of those 3 factors there. And the question is, what is the best use of your time, energy, and money to
Mm-hmm.
get to the greatest success? But then you have to ask a critical question. And this was a one-word question that, frankly, this word was beaten out of most of us by the time we were 2. So think of a
Ah,
2-year-old.
what question is that?
What's their
Hmm.
favorite word? Why? But why? Why? And
Mm-hmm.
sooner or later, an adult comes along and goes, because I said so. And we stop asking why.
Really important.
Really important. Why am I doing this? Why does this serve me?
Mm-hmm.
Why does this bring me joy? Why do I believe who told me I had to do this?
Mm-hmm.
And it's asking that actually allows you to simplify and then use your time and energy to resource, to formulate,
Mm-hmm.
and to discern what is that best course of
Mm-hmm.
action.
So it sounds like some of this might be direct learning from the experience you had as your business is at zero again. What kinds of questions are you asking? What kind of directions are you looking? And how did you even rebuild from that place? And what whys came up to you as you looked forward to the next step in trying to maybe rebuild your business or decide to close, or what happened next?
Yeah. And I think part of that once I stopped crying in the panty section, and I made the phone call to the insurance company, and I knew it was like time to start the process.
Mhm.
But the first thing I did is the next morning, I sat down with my cup of coffee and my golden hour, and I said, "Okay, you just got the biggest golden gift in shitty wrapping paper."
I love it. Why was it such a big gift?
It was a big gift because one of the things is as anybody who's been in business longer than say a couple of years, sometimes you start to feel trapped in your own business. I see
Mm.
this a lot in corporate culture a lot, and it was one of the reasons why I left corporate culture, because
Mhm.
this is always how we've done it. There's all these silos, there's all these working parts. Nobody seems to know how they work together. Nobody seems to know why we're doing certain things, and we're cluttered, we're overloaded. And I had this morning where it was like, yeah, you know what? I could close. I could settle out the insurance claim, take the money, figure it out. Would be where I stop. That's an option.
Mhm.
The other side of that option, though, was I could choose to do a clean, fresh start for my business. But
Mm.
with all the knowledge I had acquired and all the experience I had acquired over 18 years, let me be very clear. It took me 18 years to become an overnight success in most people's eyes. And there were a lot of painful, expensive lessons along the way. I have spent
Mhm.
more money making bad mistakes and bad purchasing and different things. But I was sitting there with this knowledge, but I needed the time and the capacity to actually review that
Mhm.
and come up with those plans. So the first thing is I set myself a couple of rules. One, we're bouncing back twice as good as where we are today.
Wow.
Okay, so everything we do has to be 2 times better, or it's
Ooh,
not worth doing.
goals.
That's a goal. And so then it was, and if everything is gone and everything is flattened, I'm going to trust I'm working with really good professionals.
Mhm.
And yes, I still will have to invest my time, energy in managing, delegating, doing that. That'll be part of it.
Mhm.
But I'm working with good people. I trust them.
Mhm.
I'm going to let them do their job. I'm not going to try to micromanage them. I am also going to declutter.
Mhm.
There's going to be a single piece of paper. There is not going to be a single electronic document. There is not going to be anything that I don't question. Why are you here? How are you serving me? And why
Mhm.
do you make us better?
The radical question that helps eliminate the excess so you can continue to hone in on the specialization and exactly what you're offering and why it's so good. When you remove the bloat, all the good stuff that's there.
Exactly, exactly. And that is, and we forget about it because we look into that pile in the filing cabinet and go, oh, I don't feel like dealing with it. Even though really, it would take you, I mean, come on, if a 2-year-old can dump out a box and sort through it in 20 minutes, so could you. You know what you're doing. You
It's
know?
true.
And the other part is I brought back in this sense of play.
The joy that maybe you lost in the monotony of so much regular business.
Exactly. And and the monotony that gets removed from us when we have the belief that we have to do something because this is the way it's always been done.
Mhm. When you take
That
away the script, it's
that
like
is
you said, now you can play, but
now
you're equipped with all these years of experience.
right, right.
Mhm.
And it's flipping that mindset. It's also one of the things we did is I said it's not going to be realistic for us to try to put ourselves together in 3 weeks?
Mm-hmm. Wow.
What if we doubled that 2 times? What if we said 6 to 8 weeks? Would that be okay? Could we survive that long? And it's like, well, if we're going to live 100 years on this planet, what's 7 weeks? It's putting perspective to time.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of the things that, I'm speaking a lot about the human aspect,
Mm-hmm.
but one of the reasons why we were so able to quickly and powerfully come back was
Mm-hmm.
because of technology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
And
tell me about that. What was that process like? So right, when we're looking at the bloat, the extra, the clutter, we're not just talking about store merchandise. We're talking about the way everything is set up from start to finish. We're talking about email, communication, transaction systems, tracking systems, the way that everything is flowing in and flowing out and getting tracked and getting done.
exactly. And this is one of the things that I find when I'm working with different businesses. It's the whole idea that technology is a solution
Mm-hmm.
instead of technology is a tool.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tool that can contribute to a solution,
Yes.
but first and foremost, it's a tool. And like any tool, you need to know how to use it.
Mm-hmm.
You need to know how it works with other tools
Yep. It's
and
not
what
a
goes.
one tool fixes all.
No, not at all. You know, and if it's a tool, as a human, are you working for the tool or is the tool working for you?
Mm-hmm.
And the number of times I see people working for the tool, working workarounds. And
Mm-hmm.
so one of the things we did is that we went through even our technology. And you talk
Yeah.
about bloat. How many of us have file folders and email folders full of stuff
Mm-hmm.
we will never ever look at again?
Mm-hmm.
And it is electronic clutter that is sitting there affecting us. Yeah. I haven't talked to the supplier in 10 years. Why do I have the email?
It's that
Gone.
just in case, like just in case, hold on to it mentality. I've encountered this so much in my own life. And you know what? If you get rid of it, if you need it again, there's so many ways to get that again. You go, oh, well, maybe I'll use this cutting board that I got from my great grandmother. This way, it's like there's so many ways you can really remove what you don't need, what you don't use every day. And it's okay. It's
It's
okay.
okay. It's okay. And you hit the nail on the head. The knowledge, because I'm aware of it, because I've done it once before, if I do happen to have to recreate it,
Yeah.
I could probably do it and it's not going to be the end of my world. But why hold on to that baggage? Why carry it around with me? Why weigh myself down with it
Mm-hmm.
for the
So we're
if and
removing electronic clutter, we're removing paper. So I'm assuming we went pretty paperless.
yeah, and I mean that's hard to do in the lingerie industry. We're still a pretty antiquated industry, but yeah, I've reduced our
Hmm.
paper burden. And I mean we still have to have somewhat here in Canada. We have 7 years of it.
Yes, yes.
you know, at the end of the day, don't get me wrong, I like electronic, but when you've got governments that are still largely paper,
Yep.
but
There's certain
it's
things you need to flex with. But
exactly,
that
but
you eliminated what you could. You
we
keep
eliminated
going on
what
the essential requirements.
yeah, and we eliminated processes and procedures. And this is the other area. When
Mm,
you come from the perspective of your technology is a tool that's here to enhance and
yes.
work for me, then you redesign your processes and procedures so that the human and the technology can work together
Hmm.
efficiently. But too often, we insert the technological tool or a solution,
Hmm.
learn how to use it, and we start MacGyvering and moving around the human process, and suddenly you're doing 4 times the amount of rework for something that's supposed to save you time and energy.
Mm. So do you have one example off the top of your head of the way that you leverage this in your business?
Yeah, turns out I'd never learned how to use the proper reporting system, how to generate reports on my entire inventory list.
Wow.
because I never needed to do it because I was always working at it in piecemeal.
Yeah.
And suddenly I have to provide a proof of loss, which is an itemized list for the insurance company of every single
Mm-hmm.
item in my shop, and I have to be able to verify it.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to do 2 hours of training to learn how to generate this report. My computer system had the information, it had the ability to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm sitting here going like, well, wouldn't that save me time at inventory time every year?
Wow.
That allow me to leverage when I'm going to the bank to be able
Mm-hmm.
to. Wouldn't that, if I choose to sell my business at a later date,
Mm-hmm.
exactly that nice, clean, polished package that I need to provide?
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Wow.
figuring out that time, 2 hours of learning how to do that.
Mm-hmm. Saved
Suddenly,
you.
these branches, and I have the future knowledge that how fast I could do that if the world changed again.
Mm-hmm. I really like this too because it reminds me of, as much as everyone else, that AI is a really big topic of conversation. It's a game changer. It's a huge tool that so many people are talking about. We're looking all over the place. It's like it's taken over the world before it's
Yeah,
even taken over the world. And trying to figure out, sort through all the clutter and say, okay, what's the tool that's applicable to me that I can use? Reminds me exactly like this report you're using. That 2 or however many hours put into understanding the report saved you dozens of hours doing everything manually. It's almost like, how can you put in a little learning into
yeah,
something that's going to specifically help you, even just one task that can specifically help you save so much more. And that's where technology shines so brightly, when you give it the right tool so you can keep going doing your thing, being passionate and creative about why you started your business in the first place.
exactly. And that was the other thing we did is we questioned. Okay,
Yeah.
now I was an early adopter of technology in my industry. When we first opened our shop 18 years ago, and I think I was telling you about this when we talked earlier, my rep from the supplier came in with carbon paper and was like, "Could we use your fax machine?" And I'm like, "I use email. I
My
don't."
what?
And this was 18 years ago, and I'm like, "Carbon paper? Kidding me?" But that was, and I mean, even when I was trying to email stuff in to suppliers, they're like, "Well, no, 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 we only deal fax or phone orders or that kind of thing." So we were very technologically advanced in an antiquated system, and as the system kind of started coming up, but we had basically cluttered ourselves with trying to find little pieces to do different things
Hmm.
instead of asking the end-to-end question. And I love that you're talking about AI, because AI, I I laugh. On one hand, the human side of me, who, when I sit down to do my creative writing, and I love the fact I can open up my laptop and
Hmm.
start my writing, and up pops, "Here, can I help you write this?" And it's like, "No, go
Oh,
away. I took you off. I
I'm
want to be
trying to use my
creative."
brain power here.
Exactly. I want to flow. We are creative beings. I want to play. I don't want your suggestion. How do you turn it off? But at the
Hmm.
same time, coming back to now working on things like marketing and social media, and
Hmm.
also even just I have a fellow coach. She uses AI as a counseling tool.
Wow.
Like, to go in and ask it the question of, okay, here's the scenario. Why? What do you
Mm.
think? And seeing what it generates. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this could help people's mental health, you know?
Hmm.
But once again, is it being adopted as, well, it's going to solve everything and eliminate the humans?
Hmm.
Often what we hear, and we hear the
Right.
fear, we hear the distress.
Hmm.
And it's like, but what if it frees up that hour of time for the human now
Yes.
to vision, imagine, and be able to have better interpersonal relationships? with your.
Mhm. Yep.
There's no app to fit a bra on a woman.
Mhm.
When you look at where the rubber hits the road in my business, it's professional fitters bringing
Yeah.
years of knowledge and experience to each
Yeah.
individual woman's body, and not only working with the technical fit points of the bra and the body,
Mhm.
but also the entire emotional, um,
Yes.
the belief system of self-esteem and self-confidence.
Yeah.
Now, would I hand one of my clients a computer and say, well, AI can answer this for you?
Wow. Never see that day.
I hope not.
Because yeah,
I hope
because
not.
you wanna use the tech to free you up to do what you do best.
Exactly. And that was exactly what we did when we went through. And that's why I go back to that. It was a golden nugget in shitty wrapping paper. Because when I could get past the wrapping paper and stop crying and, clean up the mess,
Yep.
it allowed me to actually, we use technology more efficiently, more effectively now.
Yep.
We freed up more human time to do the human activities. And we purposely freed up time for creation and play.
Mhm.
We have time in our work environment. Now, there's some times where it's ding, 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 pedal to the metal, people,
Yep.
orders, everything. But when we have that moment where it's like, we've got a quiet hour, we play, we laugh, we talk, we imagine as a work team.
Mhm. Mhm.
We
You've
have
let loose the passion again and the
exactly,
joy of what you're doing. And
exactly,
after all, why did you get into your business anyway? Why do most of us get into our businesses? Because we love
exactly.
it.
Exactly. There's a passion there. And that is the energy, the unleashed energy
Mhm.
that it radiates and it draws people in.
Mhm.
And
It's that magical element that makes you and your business shine above competition.
exactly, exactly. And it's kind of funny because, when you approached me and I'm like, oh boy, you're talking to the woman that, it's funny because I don't feel myself as being a techie person.
Mhm.
Though I do recognize for my age, and the generation I grew up in, I am quite tech savvy, but I'm the
Mhm.
first one that when I'm talking to my millennial employees and they're texting me and I'm like, I don't speak acronym. Write it out. I have no clue what that means. And I mean, I feel like, a dinosaur. Um, it, it's also that what I bring to the equation is a
Mhm.
simplified system. I mean, I love my laptop. I love my phone. We have our desk network, but I don't have 80 gazillion screens
That's it. You can
blaring.
run your business just
I
like
run
that.
it from a laptop. I run it from a phone. And you know what? I know when to close the laptop and say
Mhm.
time to focus on the human, when to focus. And as entrepreneurs, we'll often put more time and energy into trying to solve the technology when you forget that the most important computer is right here.
Mhm.
It is still the strongest, most powerful, self-healing atomic computer on the planet,
That's a wonderful insight.
and it needs to be cared for. And that's where, circling all the way back,
Mhm.
we went from crisis
Yep.
to closure and reopen
Mhm.
in basically 2.5 months.
Wow.
And all of us came out of it physically, mentally, and emotionally stronger and
Mhm.
healthier than we were before because we really embraced that take care of the human technology.
Mhm.
Worked 8-hour days. We didn't work 16-hour days.
Mhm.
We took the time every morning to set up the game plan that half an hour of checking in with everybody, asking the whys. How do we
Yeah.
simplify? When we came across something, it was more efficient to stop and say, why? And
Hmm.
sometimes asking that 5 times to get down to, and the number of
Yes.
times, this was the embarrassing part, the number of times where I realized, oh my God, we've been doing this because somebody in corporate 20 years ago taught me that that was the way it was to be done.
Oh, wow. When you peel back all those whys, what's at
And
the
it's like,
root?
because somebody told me so. Because
And
somebody
it,
had this idea of that's what a professional business does.
and
And
you have to
meanwhile,
learn and apply those things for yourself. Say, okay, why? And when you peel back those layers, and the way that this challenge, and that's why I think when we talk about challenges in business and honestly in life, they help make you your business so much stronger when you can go through and be transformed by the challenges you encounter.
yeah,
They're wonderful gift, even if it's bad wrapping paper.
exactly. And that's the part, and this is the other part of that why question that I haven't really gone into. But
Mhm,
there's a second word that often we're afraid, particularly in Western culture, to say. And it's another word
mhm.
that was beaten out of us when we were 2 year olds. And that is the word no.
Mm,
The word no. And people look at the word no as being a negative, but it's not. The word no is merely a healthy boundary
mm,
to ensure you can preserve your time, energy, and money and devote it to what brings the passion, the play, the creativity,
mhm. The
and
freedom.
what's useful, and the freedom,
the
and what's
the
useful to you.
no frees up the yeses. And you
Exactly.
have to be really clear about your no's and your whys and your business vision. Because if you said yes to every project or every client or every technology that you could use or do, it's just going to be too much, even when you can really hone into the yeses because of the no's.
Exactly. Exactly. And I always say to people, it's like you can always preface it with, "This is a very respectful no. It's just not for me." And we forget the the entrepreneurial freedom, which is why most people actually become entrepreneurs.
Entrepreneurs in the first place.
In the first place is looking for that entrepreneurial freedom
Hmm.
and developing that. At the same time, it does no one any good if by the end of 3 to 5 years to 15 years in your business, your body's unhealthy, your mind's unhealthy, your family's unhealthy.
Hmm.
It is truly that balancing act. And that's what I found, ironically enough, in most of my coaching and consulting practice is when I start with entrepreneurs, and the first thing I say is, "So, how many hours did you sleep last night?" And they look at me, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah, when was the last time you ate a good healthy meal? How many good healthy meals are you having in a day? Have you moved? Are you stuck behind the screen all the time?"
Hmm.
And it comes back down to you can't use these wonderful technological tools to free up your time, energy, and to make us efficient and effective
Hmm.
unless the human's okay and the human computer's okay.
Hmm. Use all the tools in your toolbox to go and
Exactly.
create the life and the business that you have in mind.
Exactly. Exactly. And don't be afraid that as new tools come in and you transition, that you can let go. You're not losing anything. And
Hmm.
this is where the respectful thank you. Thank you for serving me well,
Hmm.
but I release you now.
It reminds me of a wonderful quote from one of my favorite movies. It's quite a cheesy '90s rom-com, Sabrina with Harrison Ford, and they take off to I think Martha's Vineyard in his jet,
Yeah.
and he's so busy, he's the businessman, and she's looking out the window and enjoying the view.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm too busy to like, who has time to look out the window? And she's like, what about all that time we just saved in traffic? Like we would have been stuck in 3 or 4 hours of traffic, and now we're on this jet, like you've got nothing but time. And to not to forget, as things help take more off our plate, instead of pushing more onto them in different ways, how can you keep focusing all that energy and that good time that you now have to really do what matters to you?
Exactly, exactly. And this is a, you know, it's you're probably familiar. It's a movie called Cars, Pixel, um, Disney. Yeah.
Mm,
And it was
yes, of
my daughter's
course.
favorite movie growing up. Like when they were, that was the movie. And I still remember it's slowing down to go faster.
Yes.
It's slowing down to go faster. And it sounds, once again, it's one of those paradoxes. It's one of
Mhm.
those duality things.
Yep.
And that's where, when we look at something like AI, yeah, it's a technology that may lead us to moving faster, but only if we slow down enough,
Mhm.
recognize where it serves us the best.
Oh.
And don't forget you can turn it off. It doesn't have to be used every time. It's like even your cell phone, your screens, you
Mhm.
know, that break from them will
Mhm.
allow you to come back and be even more effective, more efficient, and actually usually look at something in a different way. Um,
Mhm.
I it's kind of funny because my husband's actually he's a tech. He fixes
Mhm.
office and machinery. And we have a bit of a love affair with Lenovo.
Mhm.
In fact, it might damage my marriage if I ever decided to buy a different type of technology. Because my husband's like, no, no, they're
Lenovo.
the best technology, the best value for the money, they last, and his thing is because we're very much into um the whole reduce, reuse, you know, conscious consumerism as a
Yes.
family.
Yep.
And so one of the things he's always had fun doing is as companies were, having their old ThinkPads and Lenovo's come off lease, he would grab them and he'd refurbish them, clean them up, and donate them to people who couldn't afford a computer. So,
Wow.
families that, and he's like, I know I'm giving them a solid piece of technology that they could use.
Mhm.
And for a family that's got kids that need it for school but can't necessarily afford it, it keeps it from going to the recycler and all these wonderful things.
Mhm.
But it lasts, it continues. And so yeah, it was kind of funny when you approached because he's just like,
Mhm.
"Oh,
It's perfect.
it's
Um,
perfect, it's perfect."
we
But
and we love to hear that. That's what, at the end of the day, I love being able to be part of a team, part of a company who makes such good products to connect people with their goals and their dreams and to live their best life. So I love to meet Lenovo fans, and I'm so glad that we've been able to have this conversation today, Angela. I feel like I've learned so much, like, and we've already talked, of course, before this, but it's just keeps compounding. And so I'm so thankful. And if you're watching this, I'm so excited to hear what you think about some of the lessons Angela has shared and imparted from her many years of experience and wisdom. Please let us know in the comments below this video what you thought. Angela, thank you so much for being here. Do you have any other thoughts before we close up today?
well, and it's a little bit of a shameless act of self-promotion here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we do have this. It's a free master class. It is on our Esteem Bra Fitting Academy website. So that's esteembrawfittingacademy.com.
Mm-hmm.
You just sign up to the email list and we will send you the 1 hour masterclass. And it's a 5-step process. I've purposely broken it down and I go a little deeper into the whole idea of mental capacity and how
Mm-hmm.
you develop as an entrepreneur. And that is probably one of the fastest ways you can improve the use of your technology is by finding a way to free up that capacity in yourself and start treating the human a little better. And then I also go through the very strong tangibles of how you can better prepare your business
Mm-hmm.
for an inevitable catastrophe. And like I said, we never wish that it would happen, but there's very
Mm-hmm.
little we have control of in this world right now. And at least if you know you have a plan, and that was at the end of the day
Mm-hmm.
Probably why I don't look like I'm 104 now. Because because I mean that was, everybody goes, oh, that was so stressful, it was so stressful, and it's like, yes, it was a stressful event thrust upon me. However, I knew I had put the right time and energy into having a simple plan in place, not
Mhm.
perfect,
Mhm.
but that filled in, that allowed us to do that recovery. And that's what I
Mhm.
share in the masterclass is, how do you look at your business in that way? Ask those important why questions, clear the clutter, and make
Mhm.
sure you're prepared so it's as easy as it possibly can be for you to recover and come
I
back
love that.
strong.
And there's twofold to that. So definitely check out Angela's masterclass. I want to enjoy it, even though I'm not a business owner yet, just because of all the learning. I think it's so incredible to be able to obtain so much of the knowledge and the wisdom learned through that experience without necessarily having to go through that experience, and the small ways you can set yourself up as a business or entrepreneur for any potential eventuality, just the little things. So I love that. Definitely check that out. Thank you so much, Angela. It's just truly been a pleasure. Let us know, everyone, what you thought about today, and we will see you next time.
See you soon.